As a result of recent events, many of us find ourselves homebound for a time. I've thought about what I could do with this time. I could make my own music, or I could criticize others' music. What do you think I'd choose? So I recently listened to an album by a good friend of mine, RetiredOrphan, and I've been meaning to share my thoughts on it ever since. The album is called Freefall, and it is a collection of EDM songs. I've known Orphan since he started his journey in music production, and I can say with confidence that the dream of his entire career is to be critiqued by an elitist like me who doesn't even listen to EDM. Hence, I decided to turn my thoughts into a video. Keep in mind that the purpose of this video is to entertain just as much as it is to provide constructive feedback, so take many of my comments with a grain of salt. There is a point in this video where I call a song garbage, and of course, I'm comparing it to the other songs in the album, as well as to other music I listen to. All of these songs are on a professional enough level where even the worst of them can hold their ground quite well against your average song. In other words, the songs I put in D tier and the songs I put in S tier aren't actually that far apart in absolute terms. Also, me not listening to EDM music is both a blessing and a curse here. I will be more critical of underdeveloped aspects of the entire genre, but I will also be easier to impress. With all that said, let's get straight to the songs. Sunrise. The album opens up with an introductory, not even as much a song as a segment to set the mood for the journey. It is cheerful and rhythmic, with an element of melancholy. If anything, it reminds me more of a sunset than a sunrise. It is overall an enjoyable listen, and everything seems in order, from harmonies to sound design. This does not hold up as a standalone song, but it doesn't even try to. Sure, Orphan could have been more creative in foreshadowing and connecting the album, especially since a lot of it will involve vocals, but it gets the main point across. Sunrise is pretty solid for what it is, and on the tier list from D to S, I rank it a C. Keep Coming. This is our first real entry in the list, and when I first listened to it, I remember noting how sort of disjointed it was. There are different elements to this song that, in my ears, don't fit too well together. The song begins nice and ambient, but then come the vocals. I did not like them very much. I don't know if it was an intentional choice to have the voice be so weird and low-key dissonant at times, but it just doesn't work. Next comes Orphan's signature move, his fussy trash compactor. It somewhat clashes with what the song has established so far, and is simply not satisfying to listen to. I think I get what Orphan tried to do here, a rather normal EDM experience with vocals, but in my eyes, it falls short. The chord progression is nothing great either. What the hell are these vocals? Finally, the song is a bit too long for my liking, with more of the dubious same, so let's just skip to the ending, which is relaxed and uses what I'm pretty sure is the Lab's piano VST. Not the best ending, but beginnings and endings have never really been Orphan's strong point. It's those build-ups where he shines. Keep Coming is not the greatest song in my eyes, but it's still a more fulfilling standalone experience than Sunrise, and I'll put it in B tier. Superhuman. Alright, this was where I started to actually enjoy the album. We are greeted with a very questionable choice in the chord progression, but that is immediately overshadowed by a much better use of vocals. I mean, damn.
Weave in and out of you, but I know that you're there. Got you, a superhero at my side. Yeah.
Out of the gate, this song establishes a stronger presence than the last one, with vocals more varied, more pleasant, and more appropriate for the song. This drop is actually ear-pleasing and exciting, with the drums, basses, and vocals nicely fitting into the bigger picture instead of the fussy trash compactor ripping the spotlight away from the rest of the song. Call back to the beginning, establishing continuity. And then a quiet part with the singing adjusted accordingly.
Oh, it's true. We are superhuman.
Have you noticed how much more earned the duration of the song feels when it changes things around and at the same time keeps its continuity so well? I could point out strange decisions with sound design and drum patterns, but they're minor and barely noticeable. My only major gripe with the song is the chord progression, and even that is noticeably better than in Keep Coming. The second drop is, much like the first, releasing even more built-up tension and excitement. I've said it before, but the vocals are so good at adjusting to and bringing to light the song's variation in mood and tone, like here when it distinguishes the second drop from the first. The song ends much like the previous one does, with a relaxing conclusion led by the soft piano. Not a fan of the final chord. I would prefer for the highest note to be a 1. I can tell this is becoming a common theme, but hey, it's hard to understate the importance of ending your song right. The first and last impressions are the most memorable after all. Superhuman is a significant step forward for this album, and I rank it as A tier. Free Fall. This song introduces a new element to the album. It feels more crowded than the previous entries did. I get the impression of being in a big city. That interpretation actually makes sense if you consider the album as one big road trip. This time the song takes its time to fade in, but then it establishes its chord progression, much like its predecessors did. This one is interesting. I mean it, the piano patterns are a lot more interesting than what we've seen so far, even though they can get quite dissonant. The vocals, the synths, the overall intensity, all of it works to uphold the big city atmosphere of the song. Just imagine, busy streets, giant buildings, people rustling to go about their daily routine, a city teeming with life. The sun lights up the sky with a dim light as a rustle of cool wind signals an approaching sunset. The fact that the song could even put this image in my mind is a big win for it, making the creative person in me appreciate it a heck of a lot more than the blandness and mediocrity that was Keep Coming. However, the same exact thing that gives the song life is its ultimate undoing. Everything fits in well into the crowded atmosphere, but all of it combined eventually becomes rather exhausting. This is the longest song in the sequence, almost 6 minutes long. The charm eventually wears off and we are left to take in the sensory overload of sounds and dissonance. Still, the song contains some good highlights for me personally. Heck, even the ending isn't half bad. It is for this reason that while I like Freefall the song less than Superhuman, I still rate it as A tier. Out of Time. Thus far, I've been able to spot my main issues with these songs very soon after they started, so I was listening to this ambient introduction, waiting for something to go wrong, like a bad chord change or unfitting sounds. But it just wasn't coming up. I surprisingly found myself enjoying these piano chords and even finding them clever at times. When the introduction kept on going without me being able to point out a flaw, I got truly stoked for once. Was this the one? A song I can truly get behind. If the introduction made such crafty use of both harmony and atmosphere, then I could hardly see how Orphan could screw it up with the song. Even if the EDM part of it wasn't perfect, I could still see myself loving an EDM song for once, especially if it made use of and expanded upon the threads of melody and harmony conceived in the beginning part. The level of interconnectedness, something I truly value in music and other venues, would allow the song to stand out from the rabble and be memorable and exciting. And with such great setup, the quality threshold for living up to that hope isn't even that high. And so, for the first time, I allowed myself to get my hopes up. Wait, that's it? You have got to be fucking kidding me. Needless to say, I was let down and frustrated when I realized that this wasn't an introduction to a rocking banger like I was excited for it to be, but simply an ambient segment to break up the flow of the album. And sure, it helps with the pacing and allows the listener to recover from the overload of the previous song, but as a standalone entity, it by no means delivers. It is nice and calming enough to earn it a spot in C tier above Sunrise. But let's face it, no one would seek this out to listen to it specifically. This was, by far, the biggest disappointment of the album for me. And I get that it's my fault for expecting this level of creativity from Orphan, but my mind wanders sometimes. And it doesn't help that the song we instead get next is hot garbage. Welcome to reality. This is probably the best song title thus far, because I can just imagine someone going, "Welcome to reality, my friend. It sucks." And that it does. This song is literally 3 notes repeated for 4.5 minutes. It is the second longest song in the album, and to say that calling it repetitive is an understatement is a great understatement. The song never feels exciting or interesting to progress through like Freefall does. To provide variety, we have a roboticized voice speaking in a weird melodic combination with the rest of the song. Come on, I know you can do better. There's also a fair bit of dissonance to the song, and nothing, neither the harmonies, nor the sound design, nor the beat, is stellar enough to pull the track out of its wreckage. I've listened to this album more than 10 times by now, and this is the entry I skip the most. Welcome, my friend, to D tier. Feckers, VIP. After a rather lackluster performance, Fakers swoops in to breathe new life into the album. Right off the get-go, we get greeted by some creative sound design work. Creativity generally makes me appreciate good songs on a whole new level compared to songs that are just good quality but feel uninspired. And I could feel the inspiration behind this one. Note how solid and satisfying the drop is, too. Delicious. This is some sweet use of dissonance that I would not have expected from an Orphan song, and the sound design is top-notch. Now, I mentioned earlier how with every song thus far I've been able to find a major flaw sooner rather than later. In Freefall it was the crowdedness, and in Superhuman it was the chord progression. In this song, it's actually a combination of the chord progression and the melody. Let me explain. The song is in B-flat minor, and the melody suggests that we are in the B-flat Dorian scale. The chord progression is as follows: B-flat minor, F minor, and E-flat minor, consisting of the notes E-flat, G-flat, and B-flat. Now notice how G-flat isn't even in the scale. What is in it is G, and incidentally, G happens to be a part of the melody. Uh-huh. Yeah, that's an epic fail if I've ever seen one. Even still, it's not off-putting enough to prevent me from enjoying the song. It doesn't rely on its melody and harmony to make it good. Rather, it brings them to a good enough level to allow itself to take full advantage of the genre with its inventive sound design and intensity development. By the way, even though this is a VIP, I am judging it as a standalone song, and I haven't even gone back to listen to the original yet, so as to not cloud my judgment. I want to approach this song as part of the album, and thus I do not care about or factor in its VIP-ness. I should probably reword that. Oh well. This ending could have been more satisfying, but meh, I'm over it. If you couldn't tell by now, I've thoroughly enjoyed Fakers, and it is the first song in this album to earn a place in S tier. This song baffles me with the sheer amount of questionable choices in it. First, we get greeted with a weird chord progression that sounds like it has potential to be good, but doesn't quite make it. Wouldn't the melody fit in so much better if this was the chord it led up to instead? Next, we get some decent sound design. Why is the arpeggio not following the chord progression? Here's our first drop, which gives me very mixed feelings as it throws entirely hit or miss chord changes and melodies at the listener within the span of 15 seconds. This melody makes the chord change weird. This one fits perfectly. Here's a great chord change, followed by an out-of-place rhythmic skip. The melody from the beginning is back and more intense, but it's almost as boring as the one in Welcome to Reality, and I already touched on this chord progression. The electric guitar is actually a nice sound design choice, I approve. Do you see why the song confuses me yet? It has thrown so much at us already, some stuck, some didn't. But if you think this is it, boy are you wrong. Here's a completely new drop! The fuzzy trash compactor actually isn't bad here, but the lingering echo from the melodic section works against the fact that the FTC is back to its initial note. I wish you extended some instruments from the melodic section, maybe just a bass, and brought them back to their starting note to reinforce the FTC like this. This might just be one of those things that works well in theory but not in practice. Anyway, at this point the song starts to feel more like a mashup of random moments Orphan thought sounded good than a cohesive whole. It doesn't fully know what it's supposed to be. Is it enjoyable? Well, more so than Keep Coming. But it's also heavy on basses and drops, and as such, it gets tiring to listen to by the end. What the hell was this ending? It reminds me of a song I made for a challenge where I ran out of time and couldn't finish. Yeah, if we've learned anything from this album, it's that those endings, they're a tricky business. Censorship is an interesting but supremely flawed song, and I place it at the front of B tier. Nothing to lose.
I've got nothing to give. This is all I can do, and so there's no other choice. It's up to me, I got to go. I've got nothing.
The title of this entry is highly ironic, considering that with so many hit or miss songs, the finale really needs to make a good impression on the listener for them to want to listen to the album again. Remember, first and last impressions matter most. Anyway, I have mentioned many times by now that it didn't take me long to spot my major complaint with each of the songs as I first listened to them. The album had taught me not to get my hopes up too high, so at this point, I was still cautious, waiting for the major flaw to finally pop up.
Feels like I'm trying to fix the unfixable, change the unchangeable.
And waiting... Holy crap, is it not coming up? Of course, I do have minor complaints as always. I found the chord progression ever so slightly weird at first hearing, and the synthesized voice could be fine-tuned rhythmically. Also, listening back a bit, you can hear some awkward auto-tuning changes. But the voice itself fits surprisingly well, and the song holds up as a coherent whole that is actually pleasant to listen to. Also, it has a strong identity. You're not going to conflate it with any other song in the album, which is mainly thanks to the aforementioned voice. It's a good feeling when bold moves pay off. Let's see if Orphan manages to pull off the ending to the ending without screwing it up like with so many other entries.
I've got nothing to lose, I've got nothing to lose. I'm the only one that seems to see through your lies.
Ooh, so close. The voice echoes for too long. It would do better to simply fade out and not take away from the final statement's effect. Otherwise, this is about as proper of an ending as you could hope for. The song is solid and enjoyable, and it's not actually easy to choose between it and Fakers as my favorite from the album. After all is said and done, I have to go with Fakers for its greater variety, but Nothing to Lose takes place right behind it in S tier. So, this is what the final list looks like. Or is it? I've questioned it multiple times and even moved things around while writing the script, since every time I listen I enjoy different songs more. For example, I seriously consider moving Superhuman to S tier as well, as it is colorful and I would often relate to it more than the S tier songs of the album. At the end of the day, I decided to factor in whether I was able to immediately enjoy a song or had to get used to it. And the chord progression made listening to Superhuman weird the first several times, even more so than the gap in Fakers. By now I'm used to it completely. Thematically, there is a certain lack of consistency between the songs. They start out like an adventurous road trip, and by the end we have full-on dystopian sci-fi. Maybe Out of Time was an acid trip and the protagonist hallucinated a synth invasion. Overall, I've listened to the album a good many times already, and I'll probably do so again. Despite whatever issues they may have, I've thoroughly enjoyed all 8 of these songs. At first, the album elicited feelings of melancholy that I found strange coming from songs like these, but nevertheless very much appreciated. By now I've kinda squeezed the freshness out of it with this review, so it may be a while before I can feel that way about them again. As for the video, it has been a journey, And it certainly took more effort than I'm used to when it comes to making videos, but not only am I satisfied with the result, I've also come up with and put to practice valuable techniques of visualizing music in a video without putting in any sort of painstaking effort. Is there room for improvement? Yeah, lots, and there always will be. But did this work? You be the judges. Here's a blooper reel of me trying my best to use the English language while recording the script. It is overall an enjoyable listen, but my voice sure isn't. Out of the gate, this song establishes a stronger... Out of the gate, this song establishes a... Oh my goodness. I can tell this is becoming a common theme. But hey, it's hard to understate the importance of... it's hard to understand the... No, not understand. It's easy to understand. Well, not... Okay, maybe it's not too easy to understand, but it's harder to understate it. I can tell this is becoming a common theme. I've listened to this album more than 5 times by now. Actually, that's not true. I've listened to this album more than 10 times by now. I've listened to this album more than 5 times by... No, 10. I'm changing it to 10. Feckers VIP. Oh, I do not have the rest of the script written. Yeah. Welp, I guess it's time to write the rest of the script. Feckers VIP. After a rather lackluster performance, Feckers... Okay, I didn't mean to say that twice. After... I just want to be done with this video. But I also want to make it good, and I think I have. Do you see why the song confuses me yet? But the voice itself fits surprisingly well, and the chord holds up. Not the... Where did I get chord from? I've also come up with and put to practice valuable techniques of visualizing music in a video without putting in any sort of painstaking effort. It's still a more fulfilling standalone experience than Sunrise, and I'll put it in B tier. You know what I'll put in D tier? My voice!